So here we are. First, welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. We're on December 8th marks the Enlightenment of the Buddha in the Japanese Soto Zen calendar. So we're at the 7th, and because it falls on a Sunday, we're celebrating it today. And so here the Buddha he has attained the great way. He attained enlightenment. He was sitting under the Bodhi tree, did all kinds of ascetic practices that didn't get him to where he was hoping to be. And so he gives up on the ascetic practices, decides to do what's called a middle way, and then he makes a vow. He makes a strong vow. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down until I attain liberation, not just for myself, but for all sentient beings, humans, plants, animals, the great earth itself, everything. That's his great vow. And so we commemorate that, and we enter into that. We enter into that vow. We enter into that experience when we sit zazen for what we call Rohatsu Sesshin. So he does this. He attains the great way, but then he's encountered with another obstacle in his path. So it's good to know the Buddha had obstacles all along his path as well. He was thoroughly a human being, Shakyamuni Buddha. And his next obstacle was doubt. He doubted whether he could actually transmit what he had understood from his experience to others. And he had to work up some other confidence within himself to be able to share it with others. He didn't come out of the gate racing and ready to teach. He was very much reticent and needed encouragement, and he got that encouragement. Last time I talked about how he was encouraged by various gods to do this, to teach. But what I want to focus on today is the place of faith in Zen. Is there such thing as faith in Zen? And that word, for a lot of us, I know for me, it carries quite a bit of baggage with it. So we often equate the word faith with the word God, with the word religion. There's a few months ago we had somebody from Tri-Faith come, and faith we associate with Abrahamic religions, with God and those religions. People will ask you sometimes, when they're discerning what your religion is, they'll say, "What is your faith?" And so faith has a different place in Zen and in Buddhism. It's not as straightforward as you might think. There's a definite component, which I think we often, when we think of the word faith, we think of taking a leap of faith, right? Making a decision based on a trust that's not necessarily based in reason or logic. But as you'll see here, when I talk about faith in Buddhism and in Zen, there is a definite logic and rationale behind faith. So that's what I'm excited to share with you today. This will hopefully touch people on different levels. There's a very basic level, I think, and there's also a more philosophical level that I will attempt to get into. And I need some faith here to be able to share that with you. Part of the reason I am interested in this word faith is when you look at modern Buddhist commentaries or modern, especially Western authors, you rarely, if ever, hear the word faith come up. And I think it's partly because we just hold a lot of baggage around that word. Especially, if you're like me, I came to Zen in part because I completely lost faith in God, in religion, And I suspect a lot of you too have gone through a similar experience. I have a different feeling and understanding now than I did 30 years ago when I felt a loss of faith. But I think there's a maturity that can take place when we lose faith, or we lose our understanding of what God is and what our role may be in relationship with God. When we lose that sense of faith, that opens us up for two things. One is madness, and two is great growth, right? So it can go either way. And I've experienced both of those. We know a lot of people who just, when we don't have a clear worldview, we don't have a conceptual roadmap about what our life is, it's just kind of all jumbled all over the place. That happens without some sense of a worldview. We don't have that worldview. That it really messes with us. Maybe perhaps more than we would like to admit in our own life. So Zen gives us, I think, a very helpful alternative way of thinking, especially for those of us who have lost a sense of purpose, lost a sense of faith in something greater than ourselves. I think this, and I'm not dismissing the faith traditions of that we all know well, or maybe not so well. I'm not dismissing those, but I'm just saying that there is a place that we can grow into, and that Zen offers so much here to really enrich, enliven us, have us feel a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a sense that everything I do really does matter. Because when I lost faith, I thought nothing I do matters or makes any difference, has any significance whatsoever. And Buddhism brought me back to this a deep sense, an even deeper sense, a very intimate sense of everything I do absolutely matters, and I've got to take what I do not seriously, but just know that it's like you pull on one strand and the entire universe moves. I mean, that's what Buddhism teaches. This is what the Buddha woke up to. This is what Shakyamuni woke up to. This is what he wants us to also wake up to, is that you matter, and that within you is this seed of Buddhahood. So what I like to do then is share how faith has been expressed within the Buddhist tradition, starting with the Buddha himself and the early words of the Buddha, the Dhammapada. Dhamma means the path, the Dharma, we call it the Dharma, or the law, or the Dhammapada. Pada comes from that word pedestrian, and pada are connected. So it has to do with a path, the path of truth. And this comes right from the beginning of these early words of the Buddha. As a strong wind blows down a weak tree, Mara, the tempter, overwhelms weak people who, eating too much and working too little, are caught in the frantic pursuit of pleasure. As the strongest wind cannot shake a mountain, Mara cannot shake those who are self-disciplined and full of faith. So Mara. So there's the Buddhist story. We know about the devil in other lore. And Buddhism has its own lore around the devil. We call the devil Mara, the tempter. And the Buddha had his confrontations with Mara just at the cusp of his enlightenment. And Mara is tempting him. Get rid of this vow. You don't have to work so hard. You're a prince. Go back to the castle. Have a good time with all those people back there. Live in comfort and ease. Why are you bothering with all this difficult, challenging practice. And Mara sends all the things that would tempt him, the lust, the things that would try to get him to give up, anger and hatred, right? The Shakyamuni was not exempt from those experiences, those feelings of desire, of want, of wanting pleasure, of hating, and of hating the things that give pain, right? And he was also confused. He wasn't able to see his connection with all things at this time. Right? And this is a way of talking about, it's personifying temptation. Mara is the name. Right? And in other Buddhist stories, the Buddha and Mara have an interesting play together. Mara comes up to Buddha and he says, Buddha, I'd like to be you. And maybe we can change places for the day. You be me and I'll be you. And the Buddha says, okay, if you want to do that, but you probably won't like it very much. And then he starts to tell Mara all the things he has to put up with and deal with on a daily basis. And Mara thinks about it and says, you know what, I'm fine being Mara. I'll stick with Mara. And I'll let you be Buddha. So there's a playfulness there between the two of them. So that's an early version of the word, where the word faith comes into play. And where's that? I want to let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, that my name, Daishin, actually the Shin, that is a Chinese character, means faith. And so when I was, I mentioned just like letting go of faith, and I shared my own, difficulties with my teacher around God and whether God exists or not, and she could see that, and so I was done with faith and I wanted something more concrete, so I came to Zen, and she gives me this name, Daishin, great faith. So it's really made me investigate, well, what is, like, I didn't know faith existed in Buddhism. I thought it was more logic oriented, and so here we are, and so now I'm very curious, so where do we find faith? So the word itself, the word faith, I'm going to show this. The word faith here, it's very, very interesting to me when I learned its meaning. This left side of the Chinese character means a person, and this right side are words issuing out from a person's mouth, right? So the words in the mouth of a person. So it literally means a person who stands by their word. It's somebody you can have faith in or trust. If somebody says what they are going to do, and then they do it, then you can trust that person. And think about people you can trust, people that maybe you can't trust, because every time they say something, they never follow through. And so my teacher, in that sense, gave me a challenge. He said, you have faith, but you need to develop it. You need to grow into it. So that's the Chinese character itself can have some significance and meaning. And then Buddhism takes it to a whole nother level. So there's a wonderful book by Thich Nhat Hanh called The Power of Prayer, and in it I think it's something like that. And so he talks about this idea of prayer and how in many religious traditions we feel that prayer could potentially be healing, but sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. How do you know? Should I do this thing or not? What does it mean? And so he discusses these things in that book. I'm not going to go into that, but this is where I first came across something called the 5 powers. And I've heard this term, the five powers, mentioned in the dedications that we do. I've heard it mentioned here and there, these five powers. And so he talks about the five powers. This is very interesting. The first of the five powers is faith. So you think about this word faith. And so the second of the five powers is effort. And here's a Chinese character. The first part is two parts to this character. This first part means pure, refined, or focused. And the second part means to advance. Right? And put together, it means effort. And effort is a very important aspect of the mind in Buddhism. We talk about the four supreme efforts and how to deal with what's called wholesome thoughts and unwholesome thoughts. So having faith, or having this sense of trust, again, we haven't really deciphered what that means yet, but this leads to, we can say that it leads to making great efforts, making wholehearted efforts. And then the wholehearted effort leads to something really, really important in the Zen tradition and in Buddhism, mindfulness. Right? You've heard that word before, to be aware. And if you wonder, well, I'm not, you can increase your mindfulness by developing faith, and by then subsequently the effort that you put in it. Mindfulness is born from these previous aspects. Right? Mindfulness means this last part here, this bottom part means the heart or the mind, and the above part means now. So where is your heart right now? That's mindfulness. Our heart or our mind can be in a lot of different places. Right? But on the Buddhist path, on the path to enlightenment, we are developing faith. And I'll just give you a big hint here. Faith is referring to that faith that we have the capacity ourselves to wake up, to awaken, to see that we are Buddha, to see that all of us are Buddha. So there's this faith, effort, mindfulness, and then mindfulness. As you develop mindfulness, alongside mindfulness comes another quality, which is concentration. Right? Concentration, mindfulness, concentration. Concentration, this is to stop or to slow down. Or you could say to settle down under one roof. To settle down, right? Concentrate. And then from concentration comes wisdom or insight. So the last character here. Right? This is insight or wisdom. And this is sometimes accompanied with another character that is also really important. This is, we see this one in the name of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And we see Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara appears in the Heart Sutra. Right? That's the Bodhisattva who sees the cries of the world. So these two together bring us to insight. So these are the five powers, right? Faith in our ability, in our inherent ability to manifest Buddha. And let's talk about what that might mean in just a moment. To tap into that Buddha nature within us. All right, we have that. We start there. And then effort. Okay, we can't just leave it at faith. We have to put some effort into it, right? To proceed with a pure mind and steadfastly to advance. All right, and that leads to the development of mindfulness. Mindfulness is there. It's just that what are we mindful of? Or are we distracted from the path? So we bring our attention to what's going on right here, right now. That develops concentration, which leads to insight. This insight, so the insight is what we have faith in, right? They're completely connected. It's not, these two things are completely, faith and insight are completely connected. Without faith in that process, insight's not going to manifest. You got to have the faith that, I can become, or I can manifest fully this Buddha nature. Again, let's talk about what that Buddha nature might look like for us. But there's something more than what we are at present. A deepening of our sense of place in the world and our power. That's why these are called 5 powers, right? We are imbued with power. And we might not feel that way, especially if you've lost your faith. You might not feel like you have a sense of power or control over other things. And we all, to some degree, we all suffer from anxiety. We suffer from anger towards other people. Maybe it's self-hate, depression. These are things, these are hindrances, these are obstacles for all of us. We suffer from traumas that we've had in our past, and we doubt our ability to really be all that we might feel. That sense of self-loathing or depression, I think it's the universe. It's our inability to see ourselves in our greatness. So the universe is pressing in on us saying, hey, you know who you are, and we're pressing back saying, I can't be that, there's no way. I've gotten too many other messages in the other direction. And so that's my interpretation of depression, that's my interpretation of anxiety, is that the universe has something big for us, and we're pushing back and resisting that calling to our greatness. And we all, this is a hindrance. This is a hindrance to our practice. And there's nothing wrong with it if we can recognize, it's a hindrance. I am not what I think I am. I am not that depression. I am not that trauma. I am not that anxiety. I am not that hate. I'm not that self-hating. Please correct it. Thank you. Thank you.
Small place.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Please come here.
Oh no, that makes sense to me.
Oh, yes.
I did not copy it, or not?
I think you wrote like solid instead of.
Yeah, you had the upright. You have.
Oh yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
I had it wrong.
Because
Okay.
the bottom part is more like walking.
Yes.
Running, walking. This goes with your definition of settling down.
Thank you so much. Thank you for correcting that. I appreciate it. Yeah. And I didn't copy it right. I had it correct on here, and then I got lost. In any case, so and that's another point is that we don't have to know everything. We don't have to have complete understanding. All of us, regardless of our station, regardless of our knowledge, a lot of people feel like, I have to know more. I have to gain more knowledge. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't study and we shouldn't gain more knowledge, but it's not going to lead us to what this is talking about here, right? So it's very simple, very basic. Faith in Buddha nature, faith in that inherent wisdom and compassion. Very simple. That requires effort. It requires which gives birth to mindfulness, which gives birth to concentration, which gives birth to insight. It's a very logical process there. Now there is, lucky for us, there is a Zen ancestor in one of the names that we chant. His name is Ashvagosha, and like I said, I was looking earlier for books, modern books about faith from Western writers, and you can't find them very easily. But I found this book actually in our library here, the Awakening of Faith. Oh, okay, this has got something special in it, by Ashvagosha, and this is kind of some heavy philosophy, but it's fascinating if we can start to get our minds a little bit wrapped around it. So think of faith. You have that early statement by the Buddha. Somebody is full of faith like a mountain that is not moved by a strong wind. So we have that early statement. We have this stuff. The 5 powers, I believe, comes from what's called the Abhidharma literature, which is Abhidharma means super dharma, and it has to do with the way that the mind works, the psychology of awakening. And now Ashvagosha goes into this really deeply and brings in other Buddhist concepts that develop later, like something called Tathagata Garbha. Tathagata, it's just a wonderful word meaning this, it's another epithet for the Buddha, and it's also equated with a term called suchness or thusness. And the Garbha means the womb. And so he says that human beings are at this intersection between the absolute and the relative, the ultimate dimension and the relative dimension. The absolute dimension is that space, that place beyond concept, beyond duality. And then there's the relative dimension of this and that, high and low, up and down, good and bad, delusion and enlightenment. And we live at the intersection of those two realities. They're not, and actually to say that they're two realities is a misunderstanding. They're one reality. And we generally, for the sake of trying to understand, Buddhists have talked about the ultimate dimension and the relative dimension because we're often unaware of the ultimate dimension, that which is beyond dualities, that which is beyond suffering and liberation. Ashvagosha, he starts out by saying that what we place our faith in is the absolute dimension, this absolute dimension of reality. That's number 1. Number 2 is the Buddha. Number 3 is the Dharma. And number 4 is the Sangha. So those 4 things, the absolute, right? All-inclusive reality. Let's just imagine all-inclusive reality, both the seen world and the unseen world. Everything. This is what we're referring to as the absolute dimension, also referred to as suchness. When this reality manifests in the world, this absolute dimension, when it manifests in the world, it's called mind. Now that's really confusing. It's called mind. So mind is not referring to the individual mental faculty that we all possess. It includes that, but it's not referring to that alone. It's not referring to mind versus matter. That's not the mind we're talking about here. This is a very interesting term, mind, the way that it's used in the Buddhist understanding of mind. And I think it's very helpful for us to get our minds wrapped around mind, right? Because this is so central. So mind is a representative of the absolute dimension manifested in space and time. And the Buddha, Shakyamuni, Upon his enlightenment, he completely manifests mind. He completely manifests mind. He completely manifests. He's in a living embodiment of mind or suchness in time. In time. Right, so this is the intersection of the timeless realms with the realm of time. The intersection of that which is beyond time and space with that which is here and now. Those two are intersecting, and they intersect fully. So the Buddhist cosmology is that for the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, those two worlds completely integrated fully in the person of the Buddha. And for many of us, for most of us, maybe for all of us, we're somewhere between that phenomenal world and the ultimate world, and we haven't, we're working towards total integration of the absolute with the relative, bringing those two worlds together. That's what we're working towards in this practice. So this is a cosmology, a way to get behind what is it we're doing when we're sitting on the cushion, when we're doing zazen. What is it we're doing? It's almost as though we're calling to ourselves this ultimate dimension, bringing these two worlds together. So why? So that we can not suffer so much. Suffering at its core, at its base, has to do with a wrong view of the world, a world caught, a mind caught in greed, a mind caught in hatred, a mind caught in delusion. And so all of our suffering, the anxiety that we experience, the depression, the trauma, these are rooted in a lack of clear seeing our full nature, our full potential, and stepping into it, and moving towards it, or calling it to us. So that's what we're doing in Zazen. And so that this is the process of sitting. We have to have faith in that process. That's what we're putting our faith in. Like, this is real. Real changes, real transformation is possible in me. And if the change is possible in me, it's also possible in anybody, in all of us. And it has ramifications not just for us personally, but especially for our families. Your families want you to be a Buddha. Right? Maybe you're not going to be wearing a robe and chanting sutras. That's not the Buddha I'm talking about. So this is the thing, is that all of us have that opportunity, that potential, just like Shakyamuni, to totally integrate the absolute with the relative. And if it's real, if we really do that, we're going to end suffering for ourselves and a lot of other people, right? We're not going to be greedy. Our greed creates suffering in our families. We're not going to be angry. Our anger creates a lot of suffering in our families. And we're not going to see life in terms of separation. But the question is, what do we put our faith in? Right? That's the foundation. What do we put our faith in? We have faith, but we often have faith in the wrong thing. We have the faith that things are not going to go well. Right? We have faith that people are going to screw things up. And the Buddha says, well, why don't you redirect your faith? Put it in faith that actually things are going to go really, really well. They're going to go fantastic. They're going to go so super. And they're going to start with you and your potential. Right? Don't put your faith in somebody else. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Don't wait for somebody to tell you that it's going to be good for you. You see it in yourself. You see it in yourself. Actually, the Buddha actually tells all of his disciples in the Lotus Sutra at some point, he says, all of them, he predicts all of them are going to have complete, perfect awakening. Right? So there's this faith in the Absolute, there's faith in the Buddha. That one is maybe more obvious. Every time we recite sutras, we do the 3 bows. The first bow is to the Buddha. So we have faith in this person. He completely intersected the relative and the absolute. He's got no more defilements. Doesn't mean he doesn't have any more problems. It just means he's clear, right? He's clear and compassionate and can deal with his whatever issues that come up without wanting to commit suicide, right? Or just going nuts. He's clear that I can do this. You know, he has confidence in himself that he can overcome whatever difficulties he's experienced, right? So we put our trust in this historical Buddha. We put our trust in the Dharma of that historical Buddha, right? What's the Dharma of the Buddha? Well, I'm attempting to share that Dharma. It's kind of we're going in circles, it seems, almost, right? But then here's the other thing: is we have faith in the Sangha. That's each of you, everyone here. That's just the most profound thing ever, that we can have faith in each other. This is where we're like, oh, it's walking on thin ice here. I don't know if I can have faith in that guy or that person over there, right? But that's the key here. I think that's the whole linchpin, right? This is where suffering really comes to an end, is when we start having faith in the Sangha, those who are practicing these teachings, right? That's a real power for us today, because I think a lot of us, at least in our culture, we don't have faith in each other. We assume the worst in others. But that's the challenge. That's our challenge. That's the Buddha's challenge to us, is to have faith in the Sangha, in the community, right? So that's a little bit from, and there's much more to this. This is obviously a whole treatise, and there's commentary on it that's super helpful. I'm hoping to get into it and share more in the coming months, along with continued talks about the instructions to the cook. But that's Ashwagosha's treatise on the awakening of faith. And the fourth, or the other place I want to go, is this later sutra called the Avatamsaka Sutra. Talks about faith as well. Let's see, there's a couple of verses here that I picked out of the Avatamsaka Sutra on faith. If someone sees the Buddha, that is gaining great benefit. If you see the Buddha, that's gaining great benefit. Right? Just to see the Buddha, that's to gain great benefit. Hearing the name Buddha and developing faith is a monument in the world. Hearing the name Buddha and developing faith is a monument in the world, right? So most of us, all of us, I don't think we've met the historical Buddha in person. That was 2,500 years ago, right? It says, if you see somebody like that, if you see the Buddha, the historical Buddha, that is gaining great faith. I don't know, I saw the Buddha in my teacher. I saw the Buddha in several of my teachers. I really feel that way, that several of my teachers, maybe I don't want to be too unrealistic here though too, because I also saw their human side, which was very actually inspirational to me. But when I initially met my teacher, I really saw the Buddha there, and I didn't see any of her faults or anything. So that did raise great faith in me. I didn't recognize it that that's what had happened at the time. But when I first sat down next to her, and I was like, wow, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what was happening. Now I look back and I said, that's the arising of great faith. But as I trained with her, I could see also, you know what? I could see, I saw that Buddha nature, but now I'm seeing also a human side, that she has struggles and difficulties, and she doesn't always act like a Buddha. You know what? That actually inspired me even more, because I saw, even despite her difficulties and struggles, she's on this path, and that means I don't have any excuses left. I got to go out there and do it too. So hearing the name Buddha and developing faith is a monument in the world. Right? I can't help but think of there's a New Testament verse, Gospel of John, verse 20, chapter 20, verse 29. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Again, I say that with some hesitation because we hear that word belief, we connect it with faith. But I do want to point out a similar sentiment there. There's something to not seeing the Buddha, but hearing about the Buddha and developing faith too. And again, when we say faith in Buddhism, we're talking about something that can logically lead us to insight if developed, if practiced. This is the last verse I want to share here, also from the Avatamsaka Sutra. Now we see Vairochana. Again, here's another name you may never have heard, so I want to explain it. Now we see Vairochana and grow doubly in pure faith. Buddha's knowledge is boundless and cannot be fully explained. Thank God for that one. So now we see Vairochana. What's Vairochana? Vairochana is the central figure in the Avatamsaka Sutra. Vairochana is another name for Buddha. Vairochana has to do with light, and it's often equated with the light from the sun. And so in the Avatamsaka Sutra, it talks about this Buddha named Vairochana. And the commentary on Vairochana, one of the commentaries I was looking at, is very helpful. I want to just read it. This comes from a book about universal enlightenment. Vairochana is the enlightened awareness that is at the heart of all things and is the true nature of our own mind. While Shakyamuni, that's the Buddha, the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, is that same awareness, fully manifested in the form of an individual human being who appeared at a certain time and place in our history. Right? So Buddha had full access to what we can call Vairochana, what we can call thusness, what we can call the absolute. He had full access to that, and it manifested completely in him in space and time. And we also have access to that. That's what we're doing. We're celebrating that. And through the celebration, we're developing these qualities, these 5 powers: faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and insight into that reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daishin.